before. I acknowledge you can sing real well, and you sort of got my goat for a while there with all that morning bench tra la, for you certainly have got that holy dope down fine. But now the time's come for business, and you needn't to think that because I can enjoy a little sentiment now and then in a leisure moment that you can put anything over on me, for it can't be did. I mean business, and I've got you in my power. We're 10 miles from any settlement, and no neighbors anywheres about. Everybody moved away. So it won't do any good to work any funny business on us. You can't get away. We're all armed, and no one knows where you are. If you behave yourself and do as you're told, there won't be any trouble. We'll just transact our business, and then we'll have a bit of supper and maybe a few more tunes. Got any ragtime in your repertoire? And then sometime after midnight, when the moon's good and dark, we'll get you back to civilization where you won't have no trouble in getting home. But if you act up and get funny, why, you know what to expect. There was a young girl murdered once in this house and buried in the cellar, and ever since folks say it's haunted and they won't come near it. That's the kind of a place we're in. So now, are you ready?"
Shirley sat cold and still. It seemed as if her lifeblood had suddenly congealed in her veins, and for a second she felt as if her senses were going to desert her. Then the echo of her own song, "Hide me, O my Saviour, hide," seemed to cry out from her soul silently, and she rallied once more and gained her self-control.
"Well, miss," went on the man impressively, "I see you're ready for the question. And you've got your nerve with you, too. I'll hand you that. But I warn you, it won't do no good. We brung you out here to get a hold of that notebook you wrote in this morning, and we're going to have it. We know that Mr. Barnard left it in your care. Hennie here heard him say for you to keep it. So it won't be of any use for you to lie about it."
"Of course," said Shirley, standing up and reaching over for her handbag, which she had laid on the piano beside her while she played. "I understand perfectly. But I'd like to ask you a question, Mr. "
"Smith or Jones, whichever you like to call it. Spit it out."
"I suppose you are paid to bring me out here, Mr. Smith, and get my property away from me," she said gravely.
"Well, yes. We don't calculate to do it just for sweet charity."
"And I am paid to look after my notebook, you see. It's a trust that has been given me. I just have to look after it. It's out of the question for me to desert it." Shirley spoke coolly and held her little bag close in the firm grasp of her two hands. The man stared at her and laughed. The boy Hennie fairly gaped in his astonishment. A girl with all that nerve! "Of course I understand perfectly that you can murder me and bury me down in the cellar beside that other girl that was murdered, and perhaps no one will find it out for a while, and you can go on having a good time on the money you will get for it. But the day will come when you will have to answer for it. You know I didn't come here alone today." Both men looked startled and glanced uneasily into the shadows, as if there might be someone lurking there. "God came with me, and He knows. He'll make you remember some day." The boy laughed out a nervous "ha ha" of relief, but the man seemed held, fascinated by her look and words. There was silence for a second, while the girl held off the ruffian in the man by sheer force of her strong personality. Then the boy laughed again, with a sneer in the end of it, and the spell was broken. The leer came into the eyes of the man again. The sneer of the boy had brought him to himself, to the self he had come to be. "Nix on the sob stuff, girlie," he said gruffly. "It won't go down with me. We're here for business, and we've been delayed too long already. Come now, will you hand out that notebook, or will we have to search you?" He took one stride across to where she stood and wrenched the handbag from her grasp before she was aware of his intention. She had not meant to give it up without a struggle, much as she had loathed the thought of one. She must make the matter last as long as possible, if perchance God was sending help to her, and must contest every inch of the way as far as lay in her power. Oh, had any one picked up her cards? Had the book with its message reached any friendly eye? Frail and white and stern, she stood with folded arms while they turned out the contents of the little bag and scattered it over the piano, searching with clumsy fingers among her dainty things. The notebook she had rolled within her handkerchiefs and made it hard to find. She feared lest her ruse would be discovered when they looked it over. The boy was the one who clutched for the little book, recognizing it as the one he had seen in the office that morning. The man hung over his shoulder and peered in the candlelight, watching the boy anxiously. It meant a good deal of money if they put this thing through. " Here it is," said the boy, fluttering through the leaves and carefully scrutinizing the shorthand characters. " Yes, that's the dope." He ran his eye down the pages, caught a word here and there, technicalities of manufacture, the very items, of course, that he wanted, if this had been the specifications for the government order. Shirley remembered with relief that none of the details were identical, however, with the notes she carried in her shoes. The book notes were, in fact, descriptive of an entirely different article from that demanded by the government. The question was, would these people be wise enough to discover that fact before she was out of their power, or not? Furtively she studied the boy. There was something keen and cunning about his youthful face. He was thick set, with blond hair and blue eyes. He might be of German origin, though there was not a sign of accent about his speech. He had the bulldog chin, retreating forehead, and eagle nose of the Kaiser in embryo. Shirley saw all this as she studied him furtively. That he was an expert in shorthand was proved by the ease with which he read some of her obscure sentences, translating rapidly here and there as he examined the book. Was he well enough informed about the government contract to realize that these were not the notes she had taken in the office that morning? And, should he fail to recognize it, was there perhaps someone higher in authority to whom they would be shown before she was released? She shivered, and set her weary toes tight with determination over the little crinkling papers in her shoes. Somehow she would protect those notes from being taken, even if she had to swallow them. There surely would be a way to hide them if the need came. Suddenly the tense strain under which she was holding herself was broken by the man. He looked up with a grin, rubbing his hands with evident self-congratulation and relief. " That's all right, girlie. That's the dope we want. Now we won't trouble you any longer. We'll have supper. Hennie, you go get some of that wood out in the shed, and we'll have a fire on the hearth and make some coffee." But Shirley, standing white and tense in the dim shadow of the room, suddenly felt the place whirling about her and the candle dancing far off. Her knees gave way beneath her, and she dropped back to the piano stool weakly, and covered her face with her hands, pressing hard on her eyeballs, trying to keep her senses and stop this black dizziness that threatened to submerge her consciousness. She must not faint, if this was fainting. She must keep her senses and guard her precious shoes. If one of those should fall off while she was unconscious, all would be undone. Chapter 25